Hello YouTube, you've reached Frank from Lightning Tech PC. Today, I'm going to show you how to fix video problems on your Sony Vaio All-In-One PC. If you have a glitchy screen, lines on your screen, or no screen at all, this repair will generally solve this problem. The first thing you're going to need is a mini Phillips head screwdriver, a magnet. Not necessary, but it's going to make your job a lot easier. A safe remove tool, plastic one. Thermal compound. A standard Phillips head screwdriver. 10 quarters. I'll get to that later. And 1 penny. A cap full of rubbing alcohol. Some Q-tips. And a tray to hold all your screws. Alright, let's get started. I've already removed the screws off this unit, but I'm going to go ahead and point out what I've removed. You want to use a standard head Phillips head screwdriver and remove every Phillips screw around the corners and edges. So you have them all the way around the edges. You have Phillips head screws. You want to take all of those out. Then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and get your mini screwdriver, which will help you take off this plastic. There's a plastic piece covering another Phillips head screw. You want to take that out as well. Once you're done, take your mini screwdriver and take out the screws that are holding your floor mount. There's 6 screws there. Once you're done, just go ahead and pull that out. Set that aside. You don't have to take the screws off where your audio and video inputs are. I've done that. I've never taken this apart before, this model, but you don't, just for record, you don't have to take those screws out. But you do have to take all the other screws in the middle, which uses a smaller screwdriver. There's screws in the middle as well. See if I can get you to see that. There you go. So that's that one we took out that had that plastic cover. There's a mini one right here as well. Okay. And just go ahead and pull it out. Now we've gotten inside the unit. You can see your hard drive case. And then you can see an aluminum cover. It's a heat shield that covers the GPU and the CPU unit. You want to take your mini screwdriver and start taking off all the screws that are around it. Take off all the screws that cover this metal shield. I've even lifted up this sticker right here and found that there was one screw, mini screw down here as well. So you want to check everything. And then you will need your standard Phillips screwdriver to remove some of these other screws down here, the larger screws. Once you're done, you will see that these little plastic pieces are holding cables together like this. You want to take all these out and remove any cables out of your way, all the cables that are around this heat shield. Then just go ahead and remove it. So go ahead and do that now. Move it out of your way. Now we're down to the CPU fan. As you can see, you just go ahead and take your mini screwdriver, take off the 3 screws that are on your CPU fan, move your CPU fan out of the way. Go ahead and unplug it as well. You can see it's plugged in right down here. You're going to need to blow it out because it's going to be full of dust. It's like a dust magnet, kind of like a vacuum cleaner. Your mini screwdriver, you want to take off these 4 screws right here that is covering the CPU. This is the heat shield. You're going to blow that out as well. Then there's 3 mini screws down here as well. You want to take those out. Once you're done, pop it out. As long as you got the loose screws out, which is these 3, these ones usually sting on because they're spring loaded. You can flip it over. And now we're down to the heat sink. We're going to go ahead and clean it out. As you can see, I've already done that. So all you do, it's real easy. The safe remove tool, any plastic wedge, anything you have. I try not to use a razor blade. I don't like scratching up these things. usually just scrape off like this all the thermal compound that's dried up over the years. And once I've breaking off all those hard parts of it, then I go ahead and get my Q-tip and dip it in my cap full of rubbing alcohol, and then just clean it up nice and shiny. As you can see, it's already done, but make sure it's dried out. So you can use a dry side of your Q-tip, the other side, and kind of just wipe it down. Blow it if you would, you know, evaporate the rest of it. Now that's all done. Now the next step, I'm going to show you the modification and the repair on the GPU unit. Go ahead and remove the plastic cover that's surrounding your GPU. You can use your safe pry tool to help you get the corner of it if you don't have fingernails. Just be very careful. You don't want to tear it up. You might use it again. Actually, you will use it again. There's no might. Alright. See, I'm already tearing it. This is actually the first time I've ever pulled this one off. I actually wasn't going to record this video, but it's the holidays right now, kind of killing time, so it's actually a great time to just show you guys how to do this. Alright, I'm going to slow down. Let's take the RAM chips out. That way I'm not continuing on tearing this. And it kind of doesn't matter. You're just using this to cover some components, really, from accidental damage. So I moved the RAM chips out of the way. That's going to help me tear the rest of it. As you can see, that was completely necessary. So you want to make sure you take your RAM chips out before you take this plastic off. And just set it somewhere where it's not going to... Okay? Alright. So right here is your Nvidia GPU. This is your graphics card. This is where your problem is. We're going to have to repair this. Now to repair it, I don't know if you've seen the, you know, the PS3, PS4, Xbox 360 repair. The Nvidia graphics chips are known to go bad on their soldering, especially in these year models, on everything, including the game consoles. So the Xbox 360 has problems as well, but not as much, but they do get them. You get the red ring of death. It just depends on the year. So basically the heat modification does work. It works every time. There's a lot of people that say it doesn't, but it does if you do it right. And the reason why is there's ball soldering underneath this GPU, the way it's designed. It's heated onto the board. Okay, so what happens is some of those balls, they crack on the soldering over time. The heat expands and cools, and when it cools, sometimes it can crack, especially from overheating. So what happens is when that happens, you lose a connection on parts of the video. So you start losing video, or it acts funny, and colors look funny. I mean, weird things happen. And since this is embedded in everything else on the board, it can even ultimately stop your DVD drive from working, or other things. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat this up to about 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's going to get really hot. So we want to make sure that we cover up any surrounding components that can melt. And what I like to use is my Ryobi heat gun, which I did forget to mention that you do need. You're going to need a heat gun. And I like to use Ryobi. I'll show it to you coming up shortly. We're going to add 10 quarters on top of the GPU as we heat it up. Now you can use whatever you want as long as it can withstand heat. The idea of this, and I don't know exactly how much that weighs. I should have measured the weight before I got on the video so it sounds better, but you get the point, is I'm adding weight to the GPU so that when I heat it up, it's pressing more against the board. So when it cools down, I pull the quarters out and the soldering stays. That's the whole point of this, is you don't want to just heat it up and press it on your finger because it's going to be very hot. So it's going to burn your finger. because that middle chipset, it's going to be very hot. It's like touching a hot, you know, cast iron pan when you're cooking. You don't want to burn yourself. So the purpose of this is to add the weight necessary, that's not too much weight, to press this GPU onto the board when you heat it up. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's my Ryobi heat gun. I like to set it at about 500 degrees Fahrenheit. I know I said to heat it up to about 210, but that's just, you know, pretty much where it gets hot. I've been doing this for a long time, so I know exactly when to stop heating this GPU up. It usually gets hot to a touch where it burns your finger. So, like I said, it's kind of like any habit. Like if you've done something for a long time, it's just natural. You know when to stop. And you get so good you don't even need the foil. But I do advise, if this is the first time you've ever done this, maybe even second or third time, you want to make sure that you cover the surrounding areas with foil, because you don't want to melt anything. But I don't have time to get foil. I just want to finish this up so I can give it to my daughter so she could use the computer. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and heat this up right now. So let's go ahead and put the pennies on, or the quarters on there. Add some weight. And we're going to go ahead and heat up this GPU. Now you want to kind of give it a motion when you're heating it up, because you want to make sure you're actually heating up just the GPU, but you're not just burning one area. Because if you do, then you're just going to, I don't know, it's going to smoke and you're going to burn it. And then it's not going to work at all. So, it takes a lot to burn it though, trust me. These things, you can set it in an oven and heat that oven up to 375 degrees and leave that board in there. The only thing that's going to melt is the surrounding components like the plastic and things like that. So just letting you know, it's not going to, you're going to have to really not know what you're doing and to mess it up. It makes a difference when you do this one-handed. I'm carrying the camera. Couldn't find my camera mount this morning, so just wanted to shoot a quick video because I got a lot to do. I gotta work on my car. I got a noisy throwout bearing on my Mitsubishi Eclipse on my car, and you know, in case you didn't know, I also work on cars, and we'll be posting videos on that as well. We fix cell phones, tablets, computers, automobiles. It's all a hobby right now. Fun hobby at that. I have more fun with cars though, trust me. Computers are just something I enjoy at home, I guess. Alright, let's see how hot this thing is. Should be about right. Maybe get it a little hotter. Perfect. It's hot. Kind of burned my finger. That's exactly where you want it. So yeah, if you burn yourself, then you know you did it right. Safe to say, but hey. Alright. So we'll just let that sit for about 20 minutes so it can cool down completely. And then we'll go ahead and finish the repair. I didn't mention to you guys earlier, so I'm sure you already know, is the same way you guys cleaned out the heatsink on the right here for the CPU. You want to do the exact same thing on the CPU and the GPU. So before I heated it up, I did clean this up the same way I cleaned the heatsink. So using the Safe plastic tool, I scraped off all the solid thermal compound that was stuck on there, and then cleaned it up with a Q-tip and rubbing alcohol on both the GPU and the CPU. The GPU didn't really have any on there, but it did need to be cleaned out because these pads, they kind of just dry up, get hot, and leave marks on them, especially if it's been overheated. So it's just a good idea to clean them anyway, even though it looks clean. Just keep it extra shiny, remove any extra debris on the GPU, and of course CPU, you want that clean because you want fresh thermal compound on there. You don't want to reseat the heatsink on there with dried up thermal compound. It just doesn't make sense. So, but yeah, I just thought I'd let you know while that thing's cooling down, because I did forget to mention that. So yeah, waiting for that GPU to cool down, go ahead and blow out your fans, your moving components, and your heatsink as well to make sure all the dust is removed. Any shop vac will work. While you're blowing out the fan, make sure you're holding the fan with light pressure so it's not spinning. It's really bad on it to overspin it, so make sure you do that. There's another fan right here that keeps the unit cool. It's a case fan. I'm going to go ahead and hold it and blow this out real quick. So you want to make sure that you blow out everything that collects dust, and that way your unit stays a lot more cool. It's real important. Let's go ahead and put that sticker right back on. And we're going to apply thermal compound on the GPU and the CPU. Only need a small amount. It's going to spread when you apply pressure to it. Now, grab your fresh penny and place it on the GPU. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is on your heatsink, we're going to go ahead and remove the thermal pad that's on the GPU. As you can see, it's badly worn. This is why it went bad in the first place. It's all dried up. Let's see how if it falls apart. It's not too bad, but still bad. Okay. Now what we're going to go ahead and do, let's go ahead and clean that out. A little bit of rubbing alcohol, blow it, evaporate. go ahead and put a little bit of thermal compound on the top of your penny. This creates a perfect bond between the heatsink, the penny, and the GPU. Okay. Now we're ready to apply the heatsink. We can leave the pad on the other chip. It's not necessary to put copper on that. I'm going to go ahead and put the CPU part of the heatsink on first. That way you're applying the proper amount of pressure onto the penny that has a thermal compound. Then you can go ahead and apply the screws onto the GPU. There we have our magnet. Putting the heat shield back on now. It's just a matter of screwing everything back in place. I'm going to plug in the CPU fan first. Plug is on the right side of the heatsink. You'll see it. There's only one plug for it. Heatsink where it belongs. Now I'm going to grab the tiny screws. Put them on. They're just tiny black screws. Put in all your standard Phillips head screws where they belong, which is pretty much a lot of the metal frame. Okay, there it is. There's a little one under here, right? Yep, these little ones here. And these tiny little silver ones. Once you've done this for a while, you really don't have to label the screws. You kind of know where everything goes just by eyeing it. It's actually funny because I can't even believe I remember this stuff. And then I got two tiny black screws, which is the remaining of it. They're actually the same. Don't let the color fool you. Doesn't matter. As long as they're the right threading. So, looks like we're good for now, except for these two long ones here. These go to the right side of the heatsink. Alright, there's that. Put the tape back on. And there's one hole right here. Looks like we're missing a screw down here and up here. So we can just eyeball that cover and see if we need it there yet. And as you can see, we don't. The screws from the outside cover actually go onto that metal frame on the top and the bottom. So if you're not sure, as a matter of fact, you can see I already messed up. It's the first time I've taken this model apart. This screw comes out because we need it for the cover. Let's eyeball it again. Let's see if any other screws are unnecessarily put on. Looks like we're good. So that's how you can double check on that if you're unsure. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug in all these wires back in where they belong. Really easy. You can see exactly where they go. And they only go in one direction, so not too hard. You see some of the cars I work on. A lot harder than a computer. Computers are easy. People say they're complicated because they're so small. They're actually really simple. They really are. Almost self-explanatory. You don't even, all you need is YouTube to learn something, right? Alright, so these little rubber pieces that hold the cables in, they're really neat. This is what they use to, the manufacturer uses to hold the cables in place so they don't kind of bounce around or get crushed. So they just kind of go in like that. They just snap right in. Pretty cool. So I'm going to finish this up. It's on. As you can see, I got all the rubber pieces in there holding the cables in. You can do it how you want as long as it looks really good. Everything's out of the way, nice and neat. I made sure that the fan is all blown out for the case. We made sure that the heatsink fan is also blown out nice and clean. We've got new copper and new thermal compound. Everything's seated properly. Okay, make sure all your screws are tight, nothing's loose inside. Let's go ahead and put our cover on now. It just snaps right in place. And then all the long screws that we had, we're going to go ahead and put them around the perimeter of the case. You just want it tight to a snug. You don't want to strip out anything. I got that one already. So looks like we have inside the centers now. Right in here, the screws. In the middle on the right side. Then to the right of the GPU, that one screw that we left in and we've forgotten about. Okay. You have one tiny screw that goes right here, the mini screwdriver. Okay. And you have two screws up here. These are actually going to be your shorter screws, just so you know. Actually going to be the mini screws on top. I kind of messed up there. So that's why you don't want to do it too tight, because if it isn't right, you want to be able to fix it. Okay. Okay. After that, now we get the feet back on. Kind of just snaps from top to bottom. And you put in your little screws with your mini screwdriver. Now I'm going to have to move this foot out a little bit. It's in the way. Back support, whatever you want to call it. Stand. Alright. Now, one more screw I missed up here. I knew that long one belongs somewhere. I'm using my mini, but that's fine. It'll fit. It's not really that small. Perfect. And we are complete. Next is a test. Of truth. Let's power this bad boy on. See what happens. All right, we did it. As you can see, it's booting up with Windows 8. I put Windows 8 in there, by the way, but this Sony Vaio is completely repaired. That was easy. It literally took just minutes of my life in the morning on the holidays. Now I can carry on and start working on my car, give this to my daughter, and she'll have a full working computer. So that's how you fix the GPU on an all-in-one Sony Vaio, an HP DV6000, DV9000, and several other computers that have GPU issues that overheat.